Welcome to the Explainer. Sometimes you come across a paper that isn't just another study, but a call to action. Today, we're diving into one of those. It's a wish list from two absolute top scholars, Herman Aguinas and Jeffrey Edwards, and it's all about how to fix management science. They've laid out 7 key changes that could seriously transform the field, and we are going to break them all down.
So here's our game plan. First, we'll touch on why management is kind of considered a young science. Then we'll get into the 7 wishes themselves, and we'll group them by theme. Building a strong foundation, connecting to the real world, and just plain old scientific honesty. And finally, we'll wrap up with why any of this should matter to you.
All right, let's kick things off with a big question. Why is it that a field like physics seems to take these massive leaps forward, while business research, well, it often feels like it's moving at a crawl? The authors have a pretty compelling answer. Management, as a science, is basically still a teenager.
Think about it. Physics has had hundreds of years to agree on the basics, right? Gravity, quantum mechanics, they have this solid foundation everyone builds on. That's how you get rapid, cumulative progress. Management science, on the other hand, is way younger, and honestly, we're still arguing about some of the fundamentals. So instead of building on top of old ideas, new theories often just replace them. And that makes real, lasting progress feel incredibly slow.
And this quote from psychologist Paul Meehl from way back in 1978 just nails the problem. A new management theory pops up and everyone gets super excited. But then, when the data gets messy or conflicting, instead of digging in and figuring it out, researchers often just lose interest. They move on to the next shiny new idea. And that cycle means we never really build that deep, solid base of knowledge you see in other sciences.
But hey, it is not all doom and gloom. And this is where our source material is so great. Aguinas and Edwards aren't just complaining, they're actually offering a way forward. They've laid out this really clear, actionable wish list, 7 specific things we can do to help the field grow up into a more rigorous, more impactful science.
And here they are, the 7 big wishes. As you can see, they cover the whole shebang, from how we build theories and measure things, all the way to dealing with real-world complexity and just being more honest in our work. So, let's dive into the first group, which is all about getting the fundamentals right.
Okay, this first set of wishes really gets down to the basics. Just like you can't build a skyscraper on a shaky foundation, you can't build a science on weak theories, sloppy measurements, and fuzzy claims about cause and effect.
So wish number 1 is all about making our theories better. Right now, a lot of management theories are super vague. They'll say something like, employee recognition has a positive effect on motivation. So the research just tries to prove the effect isn't 0. That is a really, really low bar. The wish here is for theories that make much more precise predictions, like this specific kind of recognition will boost motivation by about 10%, but only under these specific conditions. Now that is a theory you can really sink your teeth into and test. It's how a science actually moves forward.
The second wish is about improving our measures, and it all boils down to this idea of construct validity. It sounds super technical, I know, but the question is simple. Are you actually measuring what you think you're measuring? Because if your fancy survey on employee engagement is really just measuring job satisfaction, then every conclusion you draw is basically built on sand. And this is a huge problem when you're trying to measure fuzzy concepts like company culture or leadership.
And how we measure things matters a ton. The authors make this fantastic point. Think about a fever. A fever is a real underlying thing, right? It causes the symptoms you measure, like a high temperature on 3 different thermometers. The readings just reflect the fever. But too much research treats measures like ingredients in a cake, as if adding up team lunches, open plan offices, and casual Friday somehow creates a great culture. The authors argue a great culture isn't a cake, it's a fever. It's the underlying thing that causes all those behaviors. Getting that little distinction right, it's absolutely crucial for measuring things correctly.
Wish number 3 is all about getting better at proving cause and effect. Honestly, you can think of it like detective work. To prove X caused Y, you got to show they're related and that X happened first. That's the easy part. The real killer, the part where most cases go cold, is step 3, ruling out all other possible suspects. And in the messy world of business, there are a million potential other suspects, which is where so much research falls short.
Okay, so we've worked on the foundation. Now let's look at wishes 4 and 5. These are all about stepping out of the clean, simple lab and getting our hands dirty in the messy, complicated, but ultimately more interesting reality of how organizations actually work.
Wish number 4 asks us to see the world as it is, nest it,
It's like those Russian nesting dolls, right? An employee is inside a team, which is inside a company, which is inside an industry. Every single one of these levels affects the others. If you just study an employee's performance but you totally ignore their toxic team or the fact that their entire industry is in a slump, you are missing a massive piece of the puzzle. Looking at these multiple levels gives you much richer and, frankly, more accurate insights.
And wish number 5 tackles a classic headache for researchers, this big trade-off. On one hand, you have the lab. It's super controlled, so you have high confidence that X really caused Y. That's internal validity. But does it work in the real world? Maybe not. That's external validity. On the other hand, a field study of a real company feels more real, but it's so messy you can't be sure what caused what. Researchers constantly have to choose.
But what if you didn't have to choose? This is where technology is just a total game changer. We have tools now that can give us the best of both worlds. We can ping people on their phones throughout the workday to capture data in real time. We can use freelance platforms to run actual experiments with real people doing real work. We can even use virtual reality to create these super realistic office simulations where we have total control. It's pretty amazing stuff.
All right, let's get to our last 2 wishes. These are less about fancy stats and more about the culture of research itself. It's about honesty, transparency, and just good scientific housekeeping.
To really get wish number 6, just look at this number. It's wild. In one study, researchers found 17 different links between a CEO's personality and their company's performance. Sounds interesting, right? But then, another team reanalyzed the data, and when they removed just one single, highly unusual CEO, 16 of those 17 findings completely vanished. Poof, gone. That shows you the incredible, reality-warping power of one weird data point.
So, wish 6 calls for a much better way to handle this weird data. First, obviously check if it's just a typo. But if the data is real but just weird, like you've got Apple in a data set of average companies, don't just delete it. That's where the most interesting stories are. Study it. And if that data point is so influential that it changes your entire conclusion, just be honest about it. Show your results both with it and without it, so everyone can see what's going on. It's all about transparency.
And finally, wish number 7. It targets this, the generic boilerplate limitations section you see at the end of pretty much every single academic paper. You've seen this a million times, right? It's a statement that technically checks a box, but tells you absolutely nothing useful about the study's real-world weaknesses.
And here's the difference in a nutshell. A weak limitation is just vague. A strong limitation is specific and tells you the consequences. So instead of just saying, our study is cross-sectional, a researcher with real integrity would say, look, because we only took a snapshot in time, our results can't tell you if A causes B, if B causes A, or if some other thing is causing both. Now that is the kind of intellectual honesty that builds trust and real knowledge.
So we've walked through all 7 wishes, but let's just zoom out for a second and ask the most important question. Why should anyone who's not an academic care about any of this? Why does this matter to you, to managers, to anyone working in an organization?
Well, here's the crucial point. This isn't just about researchers arguing in their ivory towers. Better methods lead to more reliable knowledge. That reliable knowledge leads to better management advice, which leads to better decisions in real companies, and that has a real-world impact on everything from your well-being at work to your company's bottom line. It's pretty simple. Good science leads to good advice, and flawed science, well, that just leads to the latest bad management fad. So there you have it, the 7 wishes to fix management science. And maybe they give us a new lens to look through. The next time you read a business headline that makes a big claim, or hear some new guru on a podcast, you can pause and ask yourself, wait a minute, how do they really know that? How did they measure it? Did they prove it was causal? Could one weird outlier be driving the whole story? Asking that question is the first step to becoming a much smarter consumer of business knowledge, and that's a wish we can all help grant.